as an invitation that as we get going into the practice, see how it might be for you to feel into the sense of having backup, that you have support, the support of a group right now. And I'm thinking maybe we'll start standing. So if you have a water bottle nearby, close enough to go grab it and come back, have some water handy, because I'll show you the fun rebounding trick with water. And if you don't, we'll just visualize it. But what I want to do is start with some really gentle rocking and or oscillating movements. And this whole series, so the series of movements that we do in myofascial yoga that are all, they're rhythmical and they're gentle and they repeat. All of that sort of subset of movement has the intention of nervous system regulation. So they're really good for when you want to center yourself, or when you're feeling like something's come up and you might be a little bit agitated. All the movements we're going to do in this first quadrant of the practice are really good for bringing our nervous system into a regulated space. So we'll start with something really simple. We'll just swing the arms forward and back. If you did go and get your water, you can just place it beside you on your mat for now. We'll get to it in a second. And take your time with this one. It's just a really good way to start with something easy and simple and gentle, and it gives you a little bit of time to land on your mat. Noticing how it is to arrive to your practice. And then let's focus in on the felt sense of momentum in the arms. This is a really great, this principle comes a little bit more from the biotensegrity side of the work, but it's a really fun one to start to feel how we can use forces to our advantage in the body. So as you're swinging your arms, notice how what you can allow gravity completely to do the down motion. So if you can let gravity do the down, and then the down, because the down builds a momentum, we can let the down motion do the up motion. So gravity does the down, momentum does the up. And over time, you'll probably start to feel how the arms are kind of coming higher on their own. And this is all there is to it. And you don't even have to take the arms all the way up to get the advantage of this one. Because again, this is more about a small, simple movement that's rhythmical and it repeats. That's the intention here. And that's the type of movement that really regulates the nervous system and helps bring us to a place of centered presence. And then when you feel like that's finished, or maybe the arms are tired, see how it is to jiggle them. Just in belly dancing, we call this a shimmy movement. We're just kind of letting the arms twist back and forth, but it's a small, kind of almost like your arms have become jello and you're just letting them move. And then let's take that movement and bring it into the legs. So for this one, we're just alternating the knees, bending the knees, but it's really tiny movement and just letting the knees do this tiny little shimmy movement and shimmying into the arms. And then let that come to a pause. And as you bring your body back into stillness, take a moment and notice what qualities are you aware of inside your body, particularly belly, chest area, but it could be anywhere in your body. if you're open to it, we'll play a little bit with some interoceptive awareness building practices. So for this, as you're tracking the qualities from your shimmy, see if you can give it a name. So for me, what I notice and you can do it one more time just to really get a sense of it. So to bring the shimmy back with the arms and with the legs, or you could do one or the other. If it's too much to have arms and legs going at the same time, just choose. Do legs only or arms only. And then bring it back to pause. And then tracking your system and notice what quality emerges all on its own. So for me, I would maybe call it something like bubbles rising or fuzzy. So see if you can just give it a name. What is the quality that's there? And there's no right or wrong answer. Okay. Once you have your word, once you've given it a name and you have your word, let's do this one or two more times and we'll bring it into some interoceptive stuff. So going back into your shimmy and just whatever pace you can do it, fast or slow. You can do it a little more vigorous if you're up for it, or you could do it even slower and even gentler. The idea would be that you get it just right. How do I know when it's just right? For me, when it's just right, I can be really present with the movement and with my body. If I'm overdoing it, I find it really hard to be present with it. So if I'm underdoing it, I might, same thing, I might get a little distracted. So that's my litmus test. All right, so get your shimmy just right. Really notice what it's like. Arms, legs, belly, chest. And then wind it down to pause. And now this time as you're tracking, say your word to yourself 3 or 4 times. So I might say fuzzy or bubbles. And then notice what happens in your experience of that quality as you repeat the word. What changes? So I'm going to let you play with that for maybe 2 minutes just on your own, going back and forth from doing the shimmy and finding that way to be just the right amount for you so you can be really present with it. And then moments of pause, repeating the word, and then notice what happens with your experience of that quality. Let's take 2 minutes. You might find you want longer pauses, or you might find you want longer movement and shorter pauses, so I'll just let you explore that completely on your own. I'm just going to be finishing up your last one, whether you're exploring the pause and naming the quality or whether you're exploring the movement. And then take a moment and get curious what changed as you explored that. So what can sometimes happen is when we really notice our internal state and we give it a name, we give it assign a quality to it. And then when we go there, it can really help to expand that quality, or the experience of that quality we might zero in on it, or it might get highlighted for us. But good to just check out how it lands for you, or just what you notice in that. And then what I want to do is do a few more of these gentle rocking motions, and we'll explore that again. Might bring up a different quality. So let's go back to the arms. And this time we'll get a little bit more into the whole body. So starting with the momentum aspect of it. So I'm gonna bring the arms up and then let gravity bring them down. And then the momentum of the down is gonna do the up. So the up does the down, and the down does the up over time. And it's really good to pick your own amount of, like your own range of movement that's comfortable, which might, for some days I'm just here only, and that's all my shoulders want to do. And some days it's bigger movements that my body wants, and so we'll go with that. But really now, you're choosing your rate of rhythm and your range of motion. Those are all really important qualities for the myofascial yoga. It's like an inside out way of doing the movement. And then if you want to add in the whole body, we start to lean forward on the down and lean a little bit back on the up. And as you're doing this forward on the down, you might even want to add in a bit of a knee bend, so that your fingers swoop even closer to the floor as you're coming down. And over time, we call this movement, by the way, in yoga, the flying chair pose, because the more I bend my knees, the more I'm actually doing the chair pose, but I'm doing it in motion. Can you make it fun, like a roller coaster ride, where there's like a little pause at the very top, and then gravity sweeps the arms all the way down, and the up happens all on its own. And then when it feels finished, take a moment to slow everything down, come to pausing. And then again, getting curious, what do you notice in the way of qualities in your body? Is there a way to give that experience a name, like energized, or fun, playful, excited? And the one more invitation I'm going to offer as we go into this, playing with this one, because it's a little bit more on the vigorous side, is if you notice something like, there's a bit of a burn in my legs, or I feel really, really tired, see if there's a way to dial back your intensity so that the experience can stay on, so that we can assign it a positive attribute to that experience. So that, and not to bypass if it hurts, to maybe take time and tend to that and address that, which is great. But is there a way to dial back your intensity so that instead of burn, it might feel like warm? Or instead of tired, is there a way to dial it back enough so that it's relaxing or soothing? So seeing if you can create it this time, again, noticing what qualities come up, and then can you choose your intensity so that you can really be with the experience and that you can give it a name. Assign a positive quality to it. Okay, and again, I'll give you about 2 minutes to play with this on your own. So going into your flying chair. And taking lots of pauses in between so that again you can get really curious about how does it affect your system? What do you notice? So one more minute just on your own. Feel free to get creative with it. If your body's asking for something totally different and you feel a real strong impulse to do some kind of variation here, really, really check that out. Give yourself permission to follow your body. When you're in a pause phase, again, feel free to close your eyes and really come inside with your awareness and notice what's happening internally. If you repeat the word if you name the quality and then repeat the word, what happens? And then we'll just do one more in this kind of category of movement, which again will be the little kind of bouncy, gentle, rocking, rhythmical types of movement. And for this one, it's really good if you're new to this work to hold water, because it really helps to bring our awareness to the fluid aspect of our fascia matrix. So if you have a water bottle, you can hold it. I don't have one handy, so I'm just gonna pretend that I do. All we're going to do is bounce straight up and down. So it's like a vertical rebound. If you're a myofascial person, this would just be a vertical rebound, but it would be like on the echoing side. So we do just really, really, really light, tiny, teeny oscillating movements. Or you could think of it as just like you're bouncing on a little trampoline, but you're keeping it really, really light. And then once you've got it, look down at your water and notice the bouncing, waving, sloshing, whatever movement the water's doing. Really bring your eyes there and hold your gaze on the water for about 30 seconds to a minute. And if you change, like if you maybe let the momentum build and your bounces get a little bigger, notice what happens to the water. And then if you bring it back to really teeny tiny, what happens to the water? And I really like this one too, because one thing I meant to say and didn't is that sometimes when we do interoceptive practices, if we're in a really unsettled state, it can be really hard to bring awareness into the body. It can actually be almost increase that unsettled feeling. And so with the water exercise, it gives you something outside of the body to put your focus on. And then it can really help with kind of bite-sizing the process of then slowly bringing your awareness back into the body from there. So once you've got a sense of what the water does with your bouncing, you can put it back to the side. And then this time, and only if you're comfortable with it, we'll do the bouncing with the eyes closed. If that makes you feel wobbly and like you lose your balance with the eyes closed, don't worry about closing your eyes. You can fix your eyes on one point in the room and then just draw your awareness into your body. So get the bounce going again. Starting again with that teeny tiny little tiny bounces. Feel free to build the momentum slowly if you want. But then what we're gonna do is imagine that your body is now the water bottle. And inside the water bottle is some kind of fluid, any kind of fluid you want. It could be what's true is that we're a little bit gel, we're like a little jello dish. But you can imagine that you're this water bottle that is you is holding sparkly blue water. Or ocean water. Or water from your favorite lake. As you imagine that your interior is filled with fluid, notice how the bounce that you're doing impacts that fluid. Can you get a sense of an internal rippling or waving or even spiraling? And feel free to take breaks and do that pause where you get curious about, oh, what's that like? It's really energizing. And then on your own time, just bring it up again and again. That adding in that visualization with a felt sense of your direct present moment experience, that combination with movement really helps to build that interoceptive skill set. So I'll leave you to play with it for maybe another minute or two. You're just finishing up the cycle you're on, if you're paused, maybe go with one more bounce set and one more pause, or just finishing up the bounce that you're on and coming back to pause. Maybe before we come to seated, so I think somebody was asking for some really gentle movement, and what I like to, when we go into the movement stage of this type of yoga, I like to move through a series, sort of like a side bend, a twist, maybe a forward bend, maybe a back bend, to sort of include all those different planes of movement, and then get really curious about all the different, you'll learn about this in the program, but all the different fascial lines and all the different areas in the body that are possibly craving some movement. So let's start with the side bendy one. So we'll do this one standing and then we'll do our twist seated. you can have the legs at whatever distance apart allows you to feel a felt sense of stability under you. And I'll really invite you to explore that actually for a moment, especially if you're new to this. Notice if you bring your feet really close together, like all the way together, and then imagine that a big gust of wind is kicking up behind you. And just get a felt like how stable do you feel on your feet with that big gust of wind. And then take your feet apart and imagine that again. And take your legs really wide and imagine that again. Okay, and so what I'll leave you to do is on your own to choose where to place your feet that gives you the most, that strongest felt sense of this is where I'm most stable. That big gust of wind came up behind me, wouldn't knock me over. I'm good. And then once you've found that base, let's start with the right arm. We're going to bring the right arm up and feel along the right side of the body. So those of you who are really into really active yoga, the way that I'm going to invite you to do this might feel a little weird. So I'll just name that this can be weird. But what we're going to do is bring that right side up and track the right side of the body for stretch sensation. Can you find the moment that that stretch sensation begins to happen? And can you back off right before that? So we're kind of not letting you go past that barrier of stretch sensation yet. We'll get there, but for now, we're just gonna bring the arm up and go into a side bend. And what we're finding is, where does that stretch sensation start? And can you back off right before it starts? And then we'll do that about 3 or 4 times. So right before I hit record, somebody asked that question about movements that kind of are more lubricating. And this would be an example of that. The intention of, let's switch to the other side. The intention of moving in this particular way is that it really helps to lubricate all of the tissues without activating the nervous system's mode to protect or guard. So we'll do that maybe 5 times each side, and the real focus is, can you find the moment stretch sensation begins, and can you pause right before that on your next round? And then just stay right there in that amount of movement. Okay, and then we'll come down to seated, and we'll explore that same idea with some twisting movements. So we'll go into more of a rotation. So however you like to sit, you can sit on a chair. If you don't like to sit on the floor, you can do this one on a chair. I'm probably just going to do it in hero position because it's the easiest for me, but you're welcome to do cross-legged. I'm going to just show hero on 2 blocks. So this is kind of like my preferred floor-seated shape, but feel free to go with however you can sit your body down where you feel you can hang here for a couple of minutes without your knees getting cranky or your hips getting cranky. And then once you've got that, we're going to do a twist, and this time we're going to bring our hands together and lightly squeeze them together. See if you can feel into how, if I squeeze my hands together, it's a little bit like I'm activating hands and the arms and even the upper back, and to kind of create a sense of like a light switch turning on or an aliveness in the upper body. Really feel free to explore that. How much squeeze do you need to feel a sense of activation in palms, arms, back? And just for fun, because I know some of you are new, try squeezing really, really, really hard. Like really, really, really push, and then just notice that. It might feel like a fatigue happens really quick, or that the sensation might be different. And then for the sake of a little experiment, bring your hands together and just barely have your fingers touching each other. And notice what that's like. And then as slow as you can, start to engage. And as you do this, can you find this just right amount of squeeze to have a sense of, oh, I've just created an aliveness in my arms and back, and just maybe even in your torso. And I'll just say, if it feels fatiguing, it's probably too much squeeze. So see if you can dial it down a little bit so that it's active but not fatiguing. And then we're going to turn, keeping the squeeze. So we're going to turn, and just like we did with the side bend, we're going to track and see where's that moment I start to detect stretch sensation. And can you pause right before that moment? Okay, and we'll do that side to side. So activating, twisting, and then finding that place to turn back where you're just barely getting that beginnings of a sense of stretch sensation. Once you've found that, maybe you've gone twice to each side. Just letting your hands rest on your thighs, and feel free to close your eyes if you'd like. Just noticing what's happening now. If you let your arms rest and your back rest, what do you notice? And then let's go one more time, but this time we're just gonna go over to the right. So we're gonna create that activation at that just right dosage, and then we're gonna turn to where I'm barely feeling the stretch. And this time what we're gonna do is bring the hands down and go into sort of more of a traditional yoga twist. But for the stretch sensation, go to just really mild. So again, right at the beginning of, I'm noticing stretch sensation. It's just starting here. And then hang out with that. And slowly bringing yourself back to center. And we'll do the same thing to the other side. So bringing the hands together, creating your energization in the arms. Turn. And then bringing the arms down. You can hold your leg. You can hold either leg and go into a really, really, really light stretch sensation. Coming back to center and taking a bit of time to really notice. Again, is there a way to give the, is there a quality that surfaces? Is there a way to give it a name? Maybe it's warmth. Maybe your back is starting to talk to you a little bit and asking for some more movement. And just for sake of time, let's do the other plane of movement with the back and the front, but we'll do it as a cat and cow movement. So for this one, we'll go on all fours. You can do this one seated too. So if it hurts your wrists to be on all fours, you can stay seated, and I'll maybe show you how to vary it that way. Well, you're gonna come onto your hands and knees. I like to sometimes put my knees on a folded blanket or something so that the hard floor doesn't bother my knees. So you feel free to put your legs up on something. And the cat motion is where we're opening the back, in particular the upper back. We're really kind of opening the back, and then when we do this one, we're opening the front. And again, the movements, seeing is there a way to, you almost want to do like a micro movement at first. Is there a way to feel that the moment that you feel a stretch, you're going to pause there and notice the shape, and then switch to the other one, finding that exact moment where the stretch begins, pause there, and then switch to the next. And so at the level of going to stopping just before stretch, go that way, and like at that approach for maybe 5 rounds or so. And then if you really want to feel that stretch on like the 6th or 7th one, then see how it is to go into the stretch feeling and hang out and feel it. And it can be really light, just the beginnings of stretch sensation. As promised, let me just demo for you. If you need to be seated, if your wrists hurt, you can just sit cross-legged and round. So you're just opening the back, opening the front. Just give you maybe 30 seconds or so more to explore. And then when that feels complete, we can lay on our backs. I'll do a few more movements that are really nice for the hips because someone asked for hips. And then we'll go into some fascia engagement stuff with the tools. If you don't have little balls like this, you can use rolled up socks. So just grab some socks and ball them up, and that would be a great alternative if you don't have these balls, at least for using that just for today. But for the hip work, you can lay on your back. With the legs out straight, and then what we're gonna do to feel into the hip joint is we're going to slowly bring the leg toward the chest, and you can grab your leg with your hands if you want. But what we're going to do is that same idea as slowly bringing the leg in toward the chest and then over toward your opposite shoulder. And the movement, again, we want to start with about 5 rounds of stopping right before you get that stretch sensation. So if you want to think about how the movement goes, I'm going to take my kneecap and I'm going to point it toward my right shoulder and then toward my left shoulder. So I'm just kind of toggling back and forth. But the key is that you're stopping right before you feel any sense of stretch. You might notice that your range of motion actually increases after your third or fourth repetition, where I can actually go further and I'm still not getting stretch sensation, but I've noticed my range has increased. So if you notice that, just we'll talk about that after, but make note of it. And then maybe on your 7th round or so, let yourself go into the beginnings of a stretch, and we'll hold and breathe. The ideal for a movement like this, especially when we're being gentle, is to go into the just beginning of the stretch and then hang out until it goes away completely. Can you wait until that sensation is dissolved all the way? And we'll do that same thing on the other side. So bringing the left leg up, and you're just slowly moving the leg, tracking for that moment of the just beginnings of a stretch, and we're gonna back off so that I'm toggling back and forth, and I'm keeping the movement under that line, so I'm not yet feeling stretch sensation. When it feels like the right time for you, you can go into feeling that just beginnings of the stretch. Hold and breathe. And then we'll wait until that sensation dissolves all the way. You're most welcome to hang out with that one longer. If you need more time, feel free to take the time. And if it feels complete though, you can grab either your rolled up socks or your fascia tools if you have them. And let's start with, being that we're working hips anyway, let's use the balls on the legs. So a really nice one for kind of continuing that little line we were working on is to take either your socks or the balls and place it just underneath, like you're placing it on the bottom of your IT band. So I'm not going all the way to the middle of my hamstring. I'm scooching it in and just sneaking it under the very side of my thigh so that it's engaging that lateral part of the leg. And you're welcome to get intuitive with it. You might feel like, no, that's not right. You want to go higher. Maybe you want to go lower. Maybe you need to go further in toward the midline. So explore that plane somewhere on that outer lateral part of your thigh and find the kind of just right spot. And then we'll go into a bit of a relaxation from here, so you can bring your arms out to your sides. And we'll take maybe 3 or 4 minutes now to give the body a chance to settle in and rest. And what you might notice is that as you start to allow your body to go into resting mode, that the sensation quality in the legs where you have the balls, that might start to shift and change. And so if you notice anything where the sensation may be deepening or maybe it moves, feel free to really go with your intuition. Allow yourself to kind of follow the different sensations. If the legs melt and soften, and then sensation shows up in the shoulders, feel free to move the socks or the balls up to the shoulders and address those areas too. Let's maybe take 2 more minutes here. One thing that can be really helpful when you're going into your rest mode in this part of the practice is to start to follow your breath. And really noticing the different qualities, noticing how it is as you inhale. Is there a way to name the quality, like the felt sense of what it's like to inhale? Maybe you find it nourishing or energizing. And then really noticing what it's like as you exhale. What's the quality of your exhale like? Maybe the exhale allows your system to soften, or maybe the exhale allows you to melt into your props a little more. But whatever you've noticed and whatever name you've given it, see how it is, and we'll just go 2 minutes with this one. See how it is to name it each time. So for example, for me, I noticed inhale was nourishing and exhale was softening. So each time I inhale, I'm going to say nourish. And each time I exhale, I'm going to say soften. So I'll leave you to find your own words and explore that. And then for the last 30 seconds or so, you may just want to pick one. Which do you prefer, your quality of inhale or that quality on the exhale, and hang out with only that one, the one that you like the most. So if you still have your balls on your legs, you can let them slide out to the sides, and feel free to maybe wiggle or stretch or move your body in any way that might be good. It might even be nice to invoke a yawn and let some pendiculation movement happen, those big juicy movements that go with yawns, all on its own. Let your body go into whatever series of movements would be good. And you can bring yourself over onto your side just when you're ready, though. Really give yourself permission to hang here for another 5 minutes if you want. No rush. When you feel ready. I'm going to give you a little bit of time. I'm just going to stop the recording now and let you come back in your